Hello and welcome to all of our Gold viewers who are here with us today. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and one of the MCs here at Gold. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to one of our speakers here at Gold, Patty Brennan. Welcome, Patty. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Kristen. I'm glad to be here.
Patty has planned a presentation for us here at Gold in our Equity and Diversity series. And the title of the presentation is Birth Doulas and End-of-Life Doulas, Two Sides of the Same Coin. What a wonderful topic. We have had that intention to have this presentation here at Gold for a while now. And now that we found you, Patty, we can finally put this up here out to the world, to our Gold viewers. And today I just want to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, your background. You are, of course, a professional doula. You've been in the field for a very, very long time. So tell us a little bit about your background and how it all came to be.
Okay. Let's see. I started out as a childbirth educator, actually. I became very interested in becoming a midwife and was reading a lot of books on birth, and then it just seemed I had an opportunity, and this was back in the early 80s, to train as a childbirth educator. So I just kind of jumped on that because I thought, well, it puts me in the room with pregnant women, and I'm supposed to be in that room. So, and it was oddly became like a big part of my whole future career, which wasn't really the intention. I thought of it initially as a stepping stone to midwifery. And ultimately over time, it's the most consistent thing I've done is involved with education, training, doula training, moved into that eventually. So yeah, I like helping people to make informed choices was a big part of it, which is also a big piece of doula work. It's helping people understand their options and make the choices that are right for them.
Understand their options, making informed choices. This is so important, having somebody there who really can give them the education, and that way they can make their choices, what's right for them and their family. And a big part of doula work is also holding space, right?
Yeah.
Holding space for the family and being there for them for this very important moment. So when a new life, as a midwife, it brings me so much joy. When a new life enters this world, right, it is so, what a wonderful, wonderful event that is. And so, yeah, it is a beautiful profession, and you're doing a great service. And you've trained, how many doulas have you trained in your career, would you say?
I've estimated about 3,500 people at this point on doulas. So I started doing the doula training in 1999, and it's kind of changed and evolved over the years in terms of my interaction with that piece of it. A lot of changes, but started with birth and postpartum doula. Doing those trainings, I was a trainer through Dona International in the beginning, although I'm not affiliated with them any longer. So, it was just really enjoyed doing the training. We added end of life in 2016. And so it had been kind of on my mind for quite a while to add it, but we didn't really, start to do that until 2016. The first workshop we offered for end-of-life doulas in Michigan was filled up with a wait list, like well in advance of the workshop taking place. So we kind of realized right at the beginning of it that there was an untapped market, that there was a lot of interest in this.
And it's demand, right?
It's gone on to just grow exponentially.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned something to me earlier also, how life and, entering this life and exiting the life is so connected, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Like this, I mean, when you realized that, was that kind of this aha moment for you? When
It actually was, and it was while my father was dying from congestive heart failure, and he had been declining for several months, and his death was very much expected. He was in the hospital, though at the time hospice was not as well known of an option. It existed, but my family nobody discussed that with us. So we were in the hospital, and he was actively dying. And as I was doing this sort of death vigil with my family in the hospital, I just over and over kept had just reflection about how much it felt like being at a birth to me, like from the perspective of being that person holding space for this process and watching it and witnessing it and trying to comfort him as best we could, and just be with him and be with that process. And the kinds of thoughts that were running through my mind were similar sometimes to what I'd be thinking at a birth. I mean, it's like, how much longer? How long can this go on? Why is this so hard? Why do some people have a hard time with it? And just these questions that have to do kind of more with me as the observer than actually with his experience. But that's what I was kind of relating to. And yet I noticed at the same time that I was having these observations that I was very comfortable with just being with that uncertainty, that there wasn't necessarily an answer to how much longer. It was like,
Just
well,
letting
the
go.
answer is as long as it takes. Look,
As long as it takes, yeah.
yeah, and that you're just kind of in for it, and the patience that is a quality that does not come naturally to me. But I think that midwifery and birth doula work taught me was it was to cultivate patience. And so it just, constantly reflected how similar it was, even to the feeling of relief and just being incredibly moved at the moment of death was the same sort of sense. It obviously with the birth, there's more kind of, joy at the event, and then tears, but it's mixed, right? It's mixed. There's tears of gratitude, and there's the same feeling of awesome, something truly awesome and profound has just happened.
I hear what you said about, how this feeling of that something is, this awe, when somebody leaves this earth that you experienced. And many of us, I would say, are very disconnected from death. We don't like to talk about it. It's something we push aside. Everybody or many people are afraid of it, right? Or even bringing it up. And so I feel like it is especially important to have that education or have somebody by your side, or also be an educator. You mentioned that with how you educated families, to know their options and their choices and make informed decisions. So do you see that as well in for in an end of life doula, that you have that function too?
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of choices because there's the similarity. Part of that similarity is that people perhaps haven't gone through this process before. The family's never witnessed it before. So there's just a lot of unknowns. It's like you don't even know what questions you should be asking. You don't, because you haven't gone through the process before. So you don't know what your choices are necessarily if that's not presented to you by medical care providers and someone helping you to sort through those choices in an unbiased way. So yeah, it's very, very similar in terms of and also should be very individualized to the person and to their culture and their religion, their faith-based approach, practices that might be culturally different. So that's something that's present at both birth and at death that we need to attend to as the care providers.
Absolutely. I do have a question for you. Things have changed for birth doulas for the better, especially dealing with care providers in the hospital, not everywhere, but I think we have made some steps, right? That it's not the birth doula against the medical team. I've seen some improvements and hopefully that will continue. But do you see any barriers for the end of life doula when it comes to situations like that? Or is that more expected or accepted? Or what is your experience?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges for end of life doulas right now is that people don't know that we exist.
Yes.
So it's not widely known. And then, so there's going to be a lot of questions about the role and what doulas do. And then that's a little compounded by the fact that each doula is different in terms of the types of services that they offer and what they might specialize in. Some people may be emphasizing spiritual support. Other people might be willing to change sheets and diapers, So it really depends on how people define that. And then for the public, can be kind of confusing, I think. They have a sense of what a doula is, but with each doula being a little bit different, they don't really know what to expect from that person.
Right.
And so that's coming. Our challenge is going to be to educate people first that we're out there and the kinds of things that we do, and to understand that, all doulas are not necessarily cut from the same cloth, and that we may offer different types of services depending upon our own backgrounds, experience, interests, areas.
Absolutely. Yes. And before I let you go here, Patty, any final wise words from you to our audience that you wish people would know about, doulaing at the end of life, or our viewers here?
Well, I personally just gotten a lot of joy from not just my doula work, but also the privilege of training people to become doulas. The kind of people who have been drawn to this work are just very loving, giving people, and we all find that we have a lot in common, that we're comfortable in realms that other people aren't normally, like in the birthing suite or when someone's dying. We naturally attracted to. Many people sort of recognize their identity as a doula without ever having used that word or even be familiar with that word. It's like they realize that, and I say to them, it's like, you already are it. It sounds like you already are a doula. You just haven't professionalized that role, because they are the go-to person in their family or their community circle that people just say, hey, we want her or we want him to be with us at this time. And they're just, so we have it in us, and so many people just like recognize that they actually kind of behave as a doula in many aspects of their life, and that it is something that if they needed to if they had the desire to professionalize that or supplement their income, that it is actually something that would be valued by other families as well, and other people would be very happy for that support.
Great. Thank you so much. And Patty, if somebody is interested in any of your trainings, and you also wrote a book, I don't want to forget about this book that you wrote, right?
Yeah.
So tell us briefly your book and where we can find you if we wanted to look into a doula training with you.
Well, back in 2010, I realized, I have been self-employed my entire adult life, and find the business aspects of doing, the work that I do. It's something I've learned over time and taught myself over time. So, but I realized that so many of the people that I would train, while they came and they were a bunch of sweethearts, that they weren't necessarily prepared to open up a small business or a small practice and be self-employed for the first time, and to do everything that, just had no idea, and were very overwhelmed at the thought of creating a small business out of this heart-centered work. Like, how do you put those two things together? And for me, that was just kind of a necessity, what I had always done over the years. So I decided to write this book, The Doula Business Guide, and I wrote a book and also a workbook that accompanied it to help people sort of make informed choices about putting together their doula practices, because again, it's not one way to do it, but to kind of orient people to everything that was involved with it. And it's actually gone through 4 editions now, and it's in its 4th edition, which came out in 2024. And so I keep updating it, because it's pretty useless to have a business book that's not up to date. And then the exercises in the workbook are designed to help people begin to implement, move through that process efficiently as possible. So, and then as far as the rest of my business, the book is available on my website. It's also on Amazon. And my website is lifespandoulas.com. And we offer online birth, postpartum, and end-of-life doula training and business development supports for doulas.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Patty Brennan. It has been such a pleasure sitting down here with you and talking about the wonderful work you're doing, and of course, the presentation here at CEOLD. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
And now some brief information for our viewers out there. The presentation Birth Doulas and End-of-Life Doulas, the two sides of the same coin, will be launched together with also our Midwifery Conference of 2025. And you can also find out more information on goldlearning.com. Thank you, everyone, for watching here with us today, and have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye, everyone.
Hey, Krista.